I'd like to welcome everybody to our presentation on the Northern Border Regional Commission and our program funding for 2021. This is our first webinar for the year. We have about 30 folks on right now with a registration of 50 or more, so hopefully those folks will join us soon. We're having a couple technical difficulties. Hope you didn't sign on and wonder what was going on, but I think we're good now, and we'd like to get started. The NBRC is a program that was started in 2008 by Congress with a special focus on assisting communities in the states of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. It's a unique program that focuses federal dollars into those 4 states in a partnership with those states and agencies within those states who manage the NBRC funding. The goal of the program is to help communities with economic and community development assistance who sometimes are not able to participate in the normal types of federal funding that are made available for those purposes. The Northern Border Commission is not unique, although it is the youngest, having started in 2008. But as you'll see by this map, there are a number of other commissions that are in existence around the country, the most notable of which is the Appalachian Regional Commission, which is highlighted by the green counties. In this map, the ARC was established in 1965 and has been in existence for over 55 years. And the NBRC is really modeled upon that approach of assisting communities get projects implemented that are critical to the sustainability of those areas. Again, if you think of Appalachia, has some negative connotations about lack of investment, and again, these are focus areas in the country that are a priority for Congress for special investments. The NBRC service area, as defined by statute, includes 28 counties in New York. You'll see the list here. Unfortunately, if you're not listed, you're not eligible, but 28 counties is nearly half of all New York counties, so that's a good thing. So we can assist projects in all these areas. And if you look back, not that this is about the Appalachian program, but not only 28 of our counties are in the NBRC region, but 14 are also in Appalachia. So between the two of them, we cover 42 counties in New York State, all of which are in upstate. This is the map of those two commissions a little closer. Again, unfortunately, those that are in yellow do not qualify for NBRC funding. But again, we have a very significant footprint around the state. So how does NBRC work? NBRC and other similar type programs are basically represented by the governors of the 4 states. So for NBRC, it's Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. And then also, so the governors are the members, and then each state has a governor's alternate. And for New York State, that is Mark Pattison, who is the Deputy Secretary of State for Local Government. Myself, Kyle Wilbur. I didn't introduce myself at the start, but this is me. I am the NBRC Program Manager. And I'm also joined today by John Demarest, who is our project manager. John is also a project manager for our Division of Local Government Services, so he really wears 2 hats. He is great assistance for the NBRC program, but he also manages projects and programs for the North Country in particular, the regions of the North Country, Mohawk Valley, Central New York, and is highly involved in project development for the NBRC as well as our local government, as well as we're assisted on our webinar today by my colleague John Furtado, who is helping us with our technical side of the program. And if you're having any issues, please use the chat, and John can help you, try to help you with any technical issues you might be having. So, as I mentioned, the commission was only started in 2008, so we are very young in comparison to some of the others like ARC, which was started in '65. And when we first started, our funding was very limited. And for New York's case, I think the first year we only funded one project, and then it was a couple year after year, and then we built up to between 8 and 10 every year over the last couple of years. So in total, the commission has funded 287 grants for about $72 million across the 4 states. And we'll get into more specifics as we go about what that funding is intended to do and what are our priority type projects for community investment. Last year, New York received 43 applications for just over $28 million. And as I said, we were able to award 8 projects in funding for just under $4.5 million. That's a good number from where we started. Again, I think when I first got involved in the program in the early 2010s, we might have had $250,000 in total to award. So the commission is growing, and it's exciting because we're doing good things. And what we really enjoy about the program is it's able to fund a lot of things that either other federal funding programs can't or aren't able to reach, or really, strategic type priorities for communities that really knit together a lot of different strategies and priorities for those communities. This year, we're anticipating about the same amount of allocation as we had last year. The total program has grown to $38.5 million, and this includes some special project types for forest economy projects that won't be in this current solicitation, but for what we're talking about today, we have available $4.6 million for 4 projects in New York. And you can find information about the program. We'll share our contacts with you at the end of this session, but also the NBRC.gov website. What's unique about this program, being that it's a federal-state partnership, the NBRC itself is housed in New Hampshire, and they have staff that work with us to manage projects. The NBRC program does all the contractual work for projects that are awarded, and they've also set up one application process for all 4 states, meaning the availability of funding has been announced. That was announced on March 8th. But the application portal, there's a single portal where applicants apply through online. That'll be up, I believe, in a couple of weeks, and you will go to the NBRC website to find that portal. And again, it's an online submission. All the applications go to that spot. The NBRC staff, again, that's headquartered in New Hampshire, but they're regional in nature. They're working out of their home now, and will be even after the pandemic is over. But the applications go to the commission portal. They're reviewed by the commission staff for completeness, for eligibility, and then given to the states for our review. So it's a 4-state process, but it's managed, at least the application submission is managed in one spot, which helps keeps things the same and it helps with the ease of data collection and those types of things. This is the current timeline. It's pretty straightforward. The announcement was on March 8th. The commission has a letter of interest process. This is not mandatory for applicants. I know folks have seen the March 26th deadline and have emailed us, and we're concerned about that. We're building towards using that more it's more of a process in the future, but it's not, again, it's not mandatory. It's not a requirement for eligibility. But what we're trying to do is get an idea of how many applications we're going to have, what they are, and also to use that if somebody is way out of really not close to the intent of the program, we can advise them about whether or not they should. We don't want to limit applications, but we can advise them about whether or not their application really meets the intent, maybe save them some time. There's some other things here. There's a waiver request. Local to the LDDs, you'll see on line 3, they are the third leg of the stool, as we say. It's the federal government, the state, and the LDDs, which are the regional planning entities in the region. We have a handful of those organizations like Capital District Regional Planning Commission, Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Board. There are many others. And by statute, we're required to work with those entities. So they can request a waiver regarding some administrative actions. Again, the portal will open on April 15th. So, if you're interested in applying, keep your eye on the NBRC.gov website. But don't, the guidance manual is out when we released the announcement. The guidance manual was made public, so you can start designing your project now. It's just you won't be able to submit your application into the portal until April 15th. Waiver request, the top line in this slide, NBRC has a requirement that applicants cannot apply during a certain year if they have not completed 75% of a previous project. So there's a deadline for getting a waiver from that, and a few others. What we're shooting for, notifying all awardees by the end of August. I think it'll be before that. And this is federal funding, so the goal of the commission is to have all awards into contract by the end of the federal fiscal year, which is September 30th of 2021. So this process goes pretty quick, which is great, because we want to see projects get moving as fast as possible. So just a couple things on what's new. I already touched on letters of interest. These, again, are submitted electronically to the NBRC, shared with each of the states. And again, the goal is to make us aware of projects that are being considered. Again, what's new about this is how we're, again, moving towards a process where this may be required in future years. So we're strongly encouraging those LOIs, but not a formal part of the application. The NBRC is also making some updates to their application portal, which you'll see if you happen to apply in previous years, that we hope will be more user-friendly. And this year as well, as with many programs, NBRC is also accepting applications for match waiver or no match if there has been an impact due to COVID and your ability to provide match. The guidance is that information is in the guidance, and you will find that in the manual. But again, this is something new. It's not new to this program. Many programs have been given that authority by Congress to do that. Again, this is not as of right. You'll have to describe how COVID has impacted your ability to provide the match to the program. We'll go over the match as we move forward in this presentation. As I mentioned, the materials are on the NBRC.gov website. John Demarest and I are available. You'll have our emails at the end of this, are available to talk about project ideas as they are generated. If you have questions about the waivers or eligibility for waivers or technical questions about the application portal, please visit the NBRC website, admin@nbrc.gov. We will, I think we have the ability to share this PowerPoint with those who are in attendance. We'll make sure we get this out with all this contact information for folks. so you'll have those contacts. But www.nbrc.gov is the main website for NBRC, and if you have questions of the technical nature, admin at nbrc.gov is where you want to go for those questions. Okay, so who's eligible? Well, you saw the counties, right? So first of all, you have to be an entity in one of those 28 counties. Interestingly, that used to be 14 counties, and then in, I think, 2017, with the passing of the most recent Farm Bill, New York was, our size of NBRC doubled. So now you'll see places like Sullivan County and Greene County who are now eligible for NBRC funding. Counties in the western part of the state, like Ontario County, those were not originally part of the Commission's footprint, but now they are. So that's good, and the money has gone up, but again, it has made it much more competitive because now we have, we doubled our size, so there's more opportunities for applicants. So you'll see eligible applicants include state and local governments, Indian tribes, regional commissions, planning commissions, state authorities. Really, nonprofits are eligible. Really, the only limit to who cannot apply would be for-profit entities. Again, we can't provide direct business assistance like some other programs might. And again, prior recipients with less than 75% project completion are not eligible for this round. You would be eligible for next, but and there's a deadline by when you have to show at the NBRC that you were 75% complete. I think this is a good thing. Sometimes we manage other grant programs, and while applicants may have great projects, sometimes they begin to stack up, and it's a little hard to focus on all of them. So this is a good attempt in my mind to make sure that projects get done before applicants move on to other ones. The funding categories, also on the NBRC website is the strategic plan. I recommend that all of you who are applying read that plan. That plan will discuss the eligible funding categories. By statute, the NBRC can invest in really 7 functional areas. The underline on this slide highlights infrastructure, including transportation, water and sewer, broadband, those things. The reason why it is underlined, the Commission has to allocate at least 40% of its eligible funding to those categories. So it's a priority for investment for the Commission. In addition, workforce education, entrepreneurship, healthcare in underserved areas, resource conservation, tourism, renewable energy, and alternative types of energy. That's a lot. We really can invest in a multitude of projects. One thing that really isn't eligible or wouldn't be that competitive, we don't invest in general and municipal operations. So we're not about necessarily sustaining services the local governments provide. Like, we've had a few questions about facilities and roofs on town halls, those types of things. Those really are not competitive projects because they don't, while we want to have sustainable local government and cheaper local services where we can, where is the economic development link to those projects? Where is the community development link? So general maintenance type projects do not compete well at all with the NBRC. Ineligible uses, pass-through funding, all of the regional commissions, I believe, in their statute talk about avoiding assistance for business relocation, meaning we're trying to expand local businesses. We're not providing funding for local businesses to leave one area to come do the other. We're trying to invest in our own assets and build our own communities. Supplement to existing federal programs, and an unfair competition between businesses or other ineligible uses. The match and program funding, you remember I mentioned those 7 categories. Infrastructure, we can fund up to $1 million per infrastructure project. That's great. On one hand, it's not so great on the other hand when you only have $4 million to invest statewide. So if we have 4 $1 million infrastructure projects, then we're done. Which might be fine if they're if they provide significant return. But again, when we look at infrastructure, we try to not only look at the return of the project to the community, but also how critical is that NBRC investment to that infrastructure project. I use the example, we're not the Environmental Facilities Corporation, we're not USDA rural utility services that may have real significant infrastructure dollars. So $500,000 of NBRC funding on a $25 million project, how critical is that $500,000 to that project? What's that? It's 5%, 2% of the total project. We believe in many cases, those types of funding schemes, NBRC funding is not a make or break for the infrastructure project, right? And of course, local governments want to get as much grant as possible, but we believe in those instances, many times those projects will go on without any NBRC investment. And then it's $350,000 for all the types of projects is the cap. The grants are for previously paid and eligible expenses, so they're reimbursements. The match, NBRC defines community economic status every year. So either you are distressed or a transitional county. The majority of New York counties are listed as distressed, so the funding match for NBRC funding is 20%. That means, and then 50% for transitional counties. One of the unique things about NBRC and other types of commission programs is, unlike some federal dollars, you can match federal to federal. So I mentioned USDA. If you're doing an infrastructure project where there is USDA money in it, you can use that to match the NBRC money. However, there's a cap. There's an 80% cap on total federal dollars in a project supported by NBRC. Match can also come from state funding, local dollars, in kind, a variety of places. So the ability to be creative and match is one thing another thing that's good about this program. Eligible match, volunteer time, you'll see indirect, in-kind donations. We encourage multi-county applications, multi-local government, multi-state applications if there are any. That's hard. We've talked about that in multiple years. It's, what is a true multi-state project? We haven't really seen too many of those. I think we may have funded 1 or 2 in the past. We mentioned match. This is the current map of our counties and their economic designations. So right now, only Rensselaer and Saratoga are transitional counties. Every other county in New York's NBRC region has an 80-20, 80% NBRC, 20% local, state, in-kind match for your projects. I'm going to turn it over to John Furtado right now. I'm sorry, not yet, John. Sorry. So when applications come in, like many application processes, there's 100 points eligible for review for each application. How that is split up, the NBRC and the Commission have 50 of those points, and each individual state has the other 50. Now, all of the reviews are done by the individual state, so every New York application comes from the NBRC portal, gets reviewed by the NBRC Commission staff for eligibility, completeness, those types of things, and then are provided to each state. So, if there are 200 applications, 75 to New York, and John, myself, and our staff at the Department of State are reviewing 75 applications. The NBRC staff does not review the applications. So the NBRC review criteria, even though it's developed by the Commission, is used by the states along with our criteria for review. So the 50 points are allocated by the Commission. These have changed a little from last year to focus, truly on what are the Commission priorities, and those are: we want to get projects done. We want things that meet the strategic plan. We want, things that will help meet our strategic objectives. So the first question is project readiness. You'll need to prove to the reviewers that the project can start within 12 months of the award, and that the funding is clearly outlined. You don't have to have every dollar of your match approved when you apply, but you have to show that you'll have that within 12 months. Those that are more ready to go should score better. So again, we want to make sure that the funding is, the NBRC is what they call know your funding, meaning while we want to get projects into contract by September 30th, the money doesn't go away, but we're also monitored, right, by Congress, by OMB, so we don't want project lingering either. So, if you're not ready to go this year, it's recommended you don't apply. So those that are more ready will be looked at in a better light. Again, how does it align with the strategic plan? You can read that on the NBRC website. The economic impact, the higher the impact on job retention, job creation, job retention. You don't have a job retention criteria. Job retention, job creation. Again, those that have a better impact on that will score better. Is the project within an opportunity zone? That's a 0 or 5 point question. If you don't know what those are, you can look those up pretty easily. That's a federal priority that was under the previous administration, but is still on this year's review criteria. Will there be significant private investment or leverage private investment? What is your organizational capacity? And again, the first strategic plan was how do you meet the state's identified strategic plans. This one here is, again, how do you meet the NBRC strategic plan? So I'm going to turn it over and take a little break and have John Demarest just describe the other half of the review. Again, remember, 50 points for NBRC review criteria, and each state gets their own. You'll see in the manual, not every review criteria for each state is the same. This is ours, and John, you can talk about that.
Hello, everybody. As Kyle said, we're going to talk about the New York State part. First thing that we look at is financial need, and Kyle had touched on this a little bit earlier. We're looking for projects that the NBRC investment makes a solid investment into it. It's not something that's only a couple % of the project. It's something that, we're looking to see that, the project is going to go forward because of the money. And if the money's not there, project probably won't go anywhere. That's showing, a tremendous financial need. Project need and community impact. We look at that as well as the next piece. We're looking to see, is the impact significant for project need and community impact, or is it just, it's really needed, but it's not going to have a big impact, or it's not needed that much and it has a big impact. So we look at that, as we said, we score up to 5 points. You can get 5, 3, or 1, or 0 on any question. The third piece that we look at is looking for if it's part of the Regional Economic Development Council plan. If you're developing a project that's an infrastructure project, there's not a single REDC plan out there that doesn't have water and sewer infrastructure as one of their top priorities. But, for anything that's not that, we're looking to see that it's something that the REDC finds important, whether it's listed specifically as a project or the topic of it is. We're also looking at local plans, county plans, whatever, just to see, how important it is for the region. Links to downtowns or existing community centers. So what we're looking at is where the project is located. We're trying to build the economies in some of these smaller rural areas. So a lot of times the investment in the downtown area helps to support the towns more than doing something outside the town. Because if you bring people downtown, it's not just where the project is taking place. People are stopping in other pieces, other businesses, activities downtown, and helping to support the town growth and sustainability. Next slide, Kyle. Project sustainability. We're looking for projects, and we look at them to see if it's not just a one-time shot. You know, we don't want to have a project that, especially outside of infrastructure, where we're going to provide the funding, it's going to happen. The next year the funding's gone up, the project stops, whatever, or the activity stops. We're looking to see, you know, what's your plan to keep this activity moving forward. We've funded things like incubators in the past, so they'll discuss we're giving them money to help put it together, build the infrastructure, build out the space, and they'll talk about their plan to how they're going to maintain it going forward once the NBRC money is fully expended. Regional impact, we're looking at plans, and we're looking at projects that are for more than just one municipality. If you're doing, say, municipal water and sewer, maybe you're connecting multiple towns to the same system, so you're developing a plan for that. We've done transportation projects. We're working on rail lines that are going over multiple counties where the work is being done. So things along that way. The bigger the impact that they have, the higher that we're scoring it. Support for workforce development, entrepreneurship, emerging economic opportunities. We're looking at, a workforce development program that's going to train people for jobs, creating new businesses in the area. If you have new opportunities that are coming up, we want to make sure that you've got people who can do the work, and you've got people who want to run these things and keep them moving. Critical infrastructure within the community, and for sustainable development, we're building not just infrastructure such as a water and sewer line or a new power line. You can be building, we did a project that's building, it's in the North Country, there's a lot of hiking going on, so they're building a kind of a hub that spurs out into multiple trails. So you're developing the infrastructure within the community and showing the importance of what the project is doing. Next slide, Kyle. And then the last one is the New York State program priorities. We're looking at things in geographic distribution of the grants, the uniqueness of the project, projects that can serve as a model for future projects, impact on current regional and statewide initiatives. So if it's a project that's never been done before, we like to look at those projects because maybe if it works for you, we can work with other regions in the state. Other states can try to, within the NBRC region, can try to replicate it. We don't want to give all the funds out to just one specific county, so we look at where the funding is going around the state and just the impact we're going to have in the region. If we're supporting certain projects, the state is focusing on certain types of activities, if the funding can help support those, then that will help them score some extra points as well. Next. Now, I think Kyle's going to give some examples.
Yeah, thanks, John. Just one thing that's not highlighted in that review criteria is, I think we talk about it under, give me 1 second, under like your link to your downtowns or community centers. We want to fund projects that are part of your local planning process, right? So if you can identify as part of your comprehensive plan that, this is a key area for growth for us. Not every places have huge downtowns. So that's key. And again, these are, you may ask, well, how does a workforce development project and a infrastructure project, how can you hit on all these points? You may not be able to, but again, some may, and those that can cover more of the criteria, of course, are going to score better. Maybe right now, I don't see the chat. Are there any questions about the application process or some of the more nuts and bolts stuff before we get into the awards, past awards? John, anything?
There's no questions have been submitted yet, Kyle.
Okay, great.
There's just one question asking if the NBRC strategic plan could be forwarded.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. It's also on the website. There's a bunch of other material up there as well. I would recommend you go to the website. You'll also see that's a very good time for that question. We're going to go over 5 or 6 past awards briefly, but you'll see on the website there's information from all the other states as well and what we and they have funded in the past. So you'll get a really good review of where some of the dollars have gone. So yeah, but we can share that as well. We can we'll share this PowerPoint and we'll try to share all the other information that folks have asked for. Okay, so past awards. We tried to give a good breadth of what we funded last year. This just was funded last August. The Development Authority of the North Country worked with the Village of Tupper Lake to help expand broadband access in the village. This was $200,000 to create a 5.5-mile broadband network, which included fiber, the running of some fiber, and then establishing 3 hotspots in the village to bring broadband to existing businesses as well as some underserved homes. Great project, great application. Again, a local response to a need, and broadband is a key need for many communities still. In 2019, we provided funding to the Orleans County IDA to do some engineering and construction to railroad bridges. They have the Falls Road Railroad in 2 counties, again, a multi-municipal type project, multi-municipal impact, and this was critical to keep a short line railroad in operation, which for these 2 counties created access to markets for businesses. And one thing, I'm not a rail expert by any means, but one of the things I've been advised in the past is once these infrastructures go out of business, then you never get it back. So a real critical need for these communities. John mentioned incubators. We provided a grant to Clarkson University. In 2016, actually a couple grants to Clarkson to help them with their incubator space. At that time, they had created 147 business startups out of the Shipley Center for Innovation, and they were expanding that, and we helped them with equipment. Had the opportunity to visit that site a few years ago, and just saw all the small businesses that were being created by this program, leveraging the engineering and other types of education that's going on at Clarkson, and leveraging that into small businesses. We provided funding to Hudson Headwaters Health Network. This was in Champlain and Clinton County, way up on the Canadian border, to increase their healthcare capacity by 30%. I don't remember exactly what we funded. I think it might have been equipment as well when they were building the new facility. But again, one of the NBRC strategies is to help healthcare in underserved areas. And we've, I know this project was completed. NBRC actually did an assessment on this one to help with a rail spur at the Port of Oswego, which is the only deep water port in the U.S. on Lake Ontario. Help them with accessibility for international shipping. I think this was for, I think they get a lot of grain at that time through the Port of Oswego, and this helped with additional rail capacity and rail storage. And then finally, the last example is I use this one all the time, but again, it's one of my favorites: the reuse of a brownfield site on the St. Lawrence River in Clayton, New York. It was an old snowplow facility that was abandoned, and then the village had help remediating the brownfield, and NBRC, they applied to bring back infrastructure, water and wastewater to that site, and now it's the Harbor Hotel, which I've never stayed there, but I've walked by it. It's a great facility for the village of Clayton. So that's what we have today. I hope it's been informative. These are our contacts. I'll leave these up for now. I didn't mention Andrea Smith. I did mention the NBRC staff, and Andrea is the program director for the NBRC. She's out of the state of Maine. She works out of Maine, but is very accessible to all of us. She used to be the program manager for the state of Maine, and then transitioned to the NBRC middle of last year. So any of these three contacts, if you have questions about the program, would be available to help you. If you ask Andrea what New York's priorities are, she's going to refer you back to us, but she can definitely answer technical questions, or if you can't get a hold of John or I, email Andrea and she'll make sure we're available. So that's what we have. I think, John, you're going to rattle off any questions if there are.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions that have come in. The first one is the New York State review criteria also on the website? You can go to the NBRC website and open up the guidelines for the program.
Yep.
When you get to page 12 of the guidelines, you will see all the scoring criteria for the federal side and the state side. You'll also see the other states involved in the program, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, what they're asking. So that's all right there within the guidelines when you open it up to review that. Another question was, does the eligibility letter factor into points being awarded at all, or is it just to see if the project truly fits?
The letters of interest?
The letters of interest, yes.
Yeah.
So those are not going to factor into the scoring. It is purely, at this moment, just to be used to make sure your idea fits into the program. It also helps to give an idea of how many people are thinking of applying, and helps us when we're trying to start thinking about the review process and how many reviewers we're going to need. So the more people that submit it, the more we know, the more we're prepared and ready to go when the applications come in, and the more we can move people in the right direction if they're moving in the wrong direction with their thoughts or ideas.
Yeah, and we're going to, just as a follow-up, thanks, John. Like I mentioned, at some point, they may be a requirement, but not this year. Again, we're really trying to use it as a tool to better hone project ideas, like John said, and help applicants know if they should be applying or where it kind of fits into the program. But this year, they're not required.
And that's it for the questions submitted so far.
Okay. 10 seconds if there are any others. If not, again, you have our contact information. Like I said, the portal will be open in a few weeks. I would just, oh, somebody raised his hand. Edward Flynn raised his hand. Has a question. Well, maybe while he's typing, you know, just grant application writing 101, you know, be as succinct as possible. And when we're reviewing these, you know, sometimes the NBRC program, one thing that's good about it is, you know, sort of limits the amount of information that can be provided. That can be bad in some cases as well, but we recommend being as succinct as possible, but also remembering that there's no possible way that we can all be in your community, so we don't really know always what your needs and desires are, which is why we ask for any proof of any strategic planning documents or well thought out priorities of the community. So you know, just keep that in mind.
All right, I have a couple other questions here, Kyle, that came in. Are reimbursements at 100% completion, or are there progress payments?
Yes, they're progress payments.
Along the way, let's get down to the next one. Are there any pre-registrations, et cetera, for the application portal?
I don't believe so. Send me an email for that. I have to check with Andrea at the commission just to make sure. I don't believe so. So you can basically start your application once the portal's open.
Okay, the next question: when you get a chance, can you better define transitional counties, and how long do they stay in the transitional period?
It's a good question. So what happens is NBRC works with I think it might be Plymouth State in New Hampshire, and they annually update the economic status of the counties. And on the website as well, there is the summary information for how the counties are defined. There's a document that has been produced that can be read by applicants to understand, you know, where your county falls. It's a formula using a number of different economic indicators.
Okay, the next one, let's get to it. Did you say 80% is the max for all federal funds, or can other federal funding be a match?
Both. 80% is the max. You can't have more than 80% federal dollars in an NBRC project, but federal dollars can be used as match. So if you're in a, you know, I'm not sure what your funding formula may end up being for your project, but say you're in a transitional county where you have to provide one-to-one match for $1 million project, say, and you apply for $500,000 in ARC money, $300,000 more of that could be federal dollars.
Okay, are there any templates for the letter of interest?
No, but there's guidance in the manual about what should be in the letter of intent, letters of interest.
Okay. Would DOS consider projects included in the DRI target area that was not included in the draft strategic investment plan?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I believe we've even funded DRI projects that were matched by DRI money. I guess the question is if it wasn't picked for investment, yeah, that they wouldn't be precluded. You have to find match somewhere else, I guess, if it wasn't part of the investment package. But yeah, I mean that's a planning process. You know, we want, like I said, we want to make sure that projects, you know, if the application is May 14th, they weren't just thought of on May 13th.
Okay. Were there two different types of matching, an amount versus distressed areas?
No, match is match. Distress community only has to provide 20% match. The transitional community has to apply 50% match. I think that
okay. Is a new public sewer for an Oneida County village considered a never-done project before?
I don't know, maybe you can help me. Actually, this is fun. Not seeing the questions, it's like a game show.
I mean, I believe on this one, a water and sewer project is a project that's been done before. Just because hasn't been done in a specific location,
right? Okay.
Doesn't make it a never done before project.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you're getting at the last review criteria for the state, right? So, uniqueness, innovation, that's all things we look at. Those points are being used. The geographic consideration is easy, right? I mean, if we want to make sure this funding goes all across the state. So if we have two projects that are scoring the same, we may add points to those that are in an area that haven't been funded. And being innovative and nothing done before, we kind of may not know it till we see it. But, right, so a water project for a village in Oneida County would be eligible. You know, it would be better if there was economic benefit. But yeah, that's eligible, certainly. Is that it, John?
That's it for the, oh, wait a minute, here's one. As in an oil water separator, is an oil water separator installation project in a DPW building that doesn't have one considered eligible?
I don't want to say it's not eligible, but again, that's like, what are the long-term benefits, community benefits to that project versus is it just a maintenance project that the town or village or county hasn't been able to do before, right? You know, you have to look at your project through the lens of the grant program, and that sounds like it's more just like a general operation and maintenance project for the community.
I mean, the thing that to remember that Kyle mentioned early on is that this is an economic development program first and foremost. So if you, as you're thinking up your ideas, if you can't somehow take that project idea and draw a line to some kind of economic development for the municipality or the region, then that will, you know, give you a good idea on how successful your project will be reviewed and scored. Here's another one. Can administrative or project delivery costs be covered by project funding?
Administrative or project delivery costs. I don't know. I'll have to look at the guidance. We can do engineering and those types of things, but I feel like I don't have the guidance in front of me, but I feel like if it is eligible, there's a low limit on how much we could pay for, if I remember right. But
I think it is. I mean, just think of the Northern Border Northern Florida Center project we've done. That's usually. You're
right. Yeah, I was thinking more. Yeah, you're right. It's eligible, but I think there's a limit. Again, I'm not quite sure exactly what they mean by administrative cost. I mean, you know, if it's a school or a college that's starting a new program, we've done that. You know, we'll help pay for teachers and you know, those types of expenses. So in that instance, it would be. You know, we're not going to pay, but like the general overhead, you know, that gets to be a little more questionable. But again, I don't have the guidance memorized to every word. I think there's something in there regarding administrative costs.
And then we would review the project as a whole as well to see how it fits. Another question, what documentation is required from local governments when participating in a county initiative?
Well, any and all letters of support will be, if they're real letters of support, that'd be great to include it. I mean, I don't, if a local government is including funding for a project, then it would be great to have a resolution by the municipality. If you're just partnering, a letter of support by the town official would be okay. I guess county project, I mean, they could be a number of things, right? But at the very least, a letter of support.
And that's it for right now. We have no other questions.
This has been great. It's been an hour. I think it's been, it's been very good. I want to thank everybody for attending, and if you have any questions, please use one of these email addresses to get information to us, and we look forward to folks submitting successful applications. We're doing this again, I think, April, when?
26th, right?
April 26th, which is 3 weeks or 4 weeks from the application deadline, and we'll do this presentation again, but I think this time at the end has been very valuable as well. So if you start developing your application and have questions, tune into our April 26th webinar, and we can try to answer some more. Very good. Everybody have a nice day.